Hey, welcome to Esoteric Shifts, where me and Sheris, we are going to talk about all things esoteric. So if you're going through your spiritual journey, we are going to talk about past lives, deja vu, and a whole lot of weird stuff. So let's begin. Hey, Sheris, how are you doing?
I'm fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm doing amazing, and I'm so excited to have today's discussions. We are going to talk about past lives, right?
We are, and there's such a cool topic. I can't wait.
Yeah. Me and you have been talking about your stuff, but today we
Uh-huh.
are going to go a whole lot of, in-depth exploration about everything that you have been into. We are probably going to have a longer discussion than we usually do, so that our audience can partake in, a little more than what we have been exploring in our last two sessions. So let's
Absolutely.
begin. I remember that the first time you told me about your experiences of past life is like when you were a kid, I guess. And it was about this whole pirate thing that, you remembered that something happened and you saw yourself being in a pirate ship and you were talking in a piratey sort of language and that you had no clue about, at least by your age, at that age, I guess.
Not really the piratey kind of talk. It was more that I know nothing about boats. I am a landlubber from landlubbery people. I had been on a boat once in my life when I was like 12, and it was a little tiny speedboat on a lake where you could see all four, and like you could see all the land, like there was no. So that was the entire experience of me ever having been on a boat. I may
Hmm.
have been on a glass bottom boat when I was actually, I think I was on a glass bottom boat once when I was like 8. That's it. That was
Oh.
it. That was the entire experience of my boatness. And yet somehow I had actually a couple of dreams about being this person, and I was actually a woman pirate. And from the dreams, that accessed a part of my memory that stayed with me for a really long time that knew the names of all the parts of a ship.
Wow.
Now, I knew the English names of them, so I think I was, or Gaelic names for things. So I think I was someone in the England, Ireland
Hmm.
area. I think actually now that I'm a little more, you know, a little older and things are a little easier to find, now I suspect that I'm a specific female pirate from Ireland. But at the time, I just knew that I was really resonating with the idea of like it felt real. It didn't feel like um, a dream. It didn't feel like an imagination. It
Hmm.
felt like that was me, different me. So I looked
Hmm.
totally different, but a different me, but in that experience, doing those things with those people, which is
Wow.
there's a difference, there's a different quality to memory than there is to being in a dream. And that is the thing that really resonates the most with people who do past life regression is that
Hmm.
it's hard to quantify exactly, but it is a totally different feeling. You just
Uh-huh.
you know that you are or were that person. You know that that experience, it's more than just an imagination. It's like a deep knowing in your soul, like where you're resonating with it and you're like, yes, yes, that's the thing. That's
Wow.
that's me. That's who I am.
That's so exciting.
It
I
is.
mean, I guess like at this point of time, I would let my audience know, our audience know that you are a past life regression coach. And we talked about a little about your past life regression healing and how you help your clients in our last video. So I'll have a link of that video above somewhere. But is your whole past life regression coaching career, is there something that connected with that experience that happened in your childhood that you just mentioned? Did that trigger that?
Well, it's actually it's not coaching, it's hypnotherapy. So there's two different, like
Ah,
I do coaching and then I also do hypnotherapy. Um,
okay.
And I have always been fascinated since I can remember with all things weird. Part of it is my family history. We were very open to that kind of weird stuff. Played with Ouija boards from the earliest times that I can remember. I was always the intuitive one in the family. I could talk to spirit guides, all the kind of thing. And so the idea of there having been past lives wasn't new to me in any way, shape, or form. So I was open to it. So some people, when they first have those kinds of experiences, they chalk it up to being an extremely vivid dream or something. Whereas I was more open to the idea that that was more. That was something different from just a really vivid dream, which I've also had, but vivid dreams tend to be a little weirder, and they don't download that kind of information that I learned from that dream. Like being able to completely explain how an old sailing ship works, at this point now, that was 40 years ago, so I'm losing it a little bit. But being able to explain how all the parts of a ship worked, what the different roles were on the ship, being able to know what everything was called on a ship. Like even the littlest things, I knew what they were. People would show me pictures and I'd be able to be like, oh, that's the thing, and that's the thing, and that's the thing. And I could explain who did what on a ship, and it just kind of fell into my head because that's the way that past life regression therapy works. And when you accidentally do it, it feels a little weird, but when you intentionally do it, you actually have that therapist with you who can help you integrate that without you freaking out and feeling like, you're losing your mind. Because you really do, you don't just integrate like, oh, that was an interesting experience. You integrate all of the knowledge from the other people from your past, which is really fascinating, fascinating. It can be very, very cool. It can be when it accidentally happens to you, it can be very confusing. It really can. But when you are expecting it and you are ready to integrate it and then to release the parts of it that hurt, it becomes a lot easier.
Wow, this is so interesting. So how old are you when you had this dream?
12.
12. Okay.
Yes.
And so does that mean like now that you are a hypnotherapist and you help people with healing through past lives, so you being a past life regression therapist, your own past life regression happened naturally without the aid of somebody else, organically?
The first one did, yes, absolutely.
Wow. Was that something that triggered that experience, or is it like you just went to sleep and it just happened without anything? Or was that anything special that you did that day that you can connect with?
Not that day, no, it wasn't anything particular. I had read some. I'm a voracious, or I used to be a voracious reader.
I know that. Yeah.
The Meniere's disease kind of took that away from me, and along with some of the memories of some of these things. But I was a voracious reader even at that age, and I remember that I was reading all of the James Clavell stuff at the time.
Okay.
So Shogun and Taipei and all of that kind of like the Chinese, Japanese kind of stuff. And the parts that always stuck out to me were the idea that these Westerners had come there on ships. And that was really interesting to me. So I was reading a lot of historical stuff, and that was really the only thing that truly triggered this was just the idea that, that there could be some interesting stuff there, like that would have been really cool to go experience and live through.
Okay,
And
that's
then
interesting.
that
So you were
wasn't even
reading.
remotely the thing that I had experienced. And then another one that actually is related to a book was I read Pearl S. Buck's book, say that 14 times fast, The Good Earth. Well, around the same time, I think I was about 13 when I read that one. And I remember that book triggered some memories of something for me. So it's about, I don't know if you've heard of the book, it's about Chinese peasants in like the 16th, 17th century, something like that. I might be misremembering it a little bit, but it's about Chinese peasants in that kind of rural, pre-industrial setting in China. I don't know what actual decade it was, but it might have been later. But anyways, so the first part of the book, at least, is about that. And it really resonated with me that experience felt very real for me. And I actually had some waking rememberings, because I like to call them rememberings, some waking rememberings of being Chinese at one point. And potentially, I think I was a girl, and I'm pretty sure my feet were bound. Now, that life I've never come back to again, but I do think that it explains a lot of the things that I have going on with my feet, because I don't like them being uncovered. I like to be in squishy shoes. All those things really do, they interconnect. We interconnect with our present life and the things that we like and the things that are, that we feel like they're integral to who we are. A lot of times they're actually rememberings or half rememberings from past lives, which is fascinating. It's kind of like a deja vu, but for your internal body and who you actually are.
Wow. You mentioned day remembering, right? That means these rememberings happen without going to sleep in a dream state or something like that.
Absolutely.
So they were just coming like out of the blue as like memories from past life?
Yeah, at that one, actually, those memories actually came as I was reading the book. I'm like, oh. And of course, I'm pretty spiritual, but that still freaked me out pretty good. I'm like, dear Lord, what the heck? I actually still have that book in my bookshelves because it freaked me out so much. I've never read it since, because that book totally took me to a different place. You know how sometimes a book can take you to a different place? That book took me to a different place.
I can understand, I guess. I mean, like if something happened to you in past life, then just reading the book would trigger those memories. It does make sense. Taking to a different place, of course.
But I think it depends how open you are to those experiences, though, right? So for someone who's very closed off from those experiences, who's afraid of them, or who doesn't believe in them, or who whatever, they're going to either discount the experience, or they're going to pretend it didn't happen, or their subconscious is just going to absolutely shut it down and not let it happen no matter what they want consciously. And that happens. And that's okay. I'm not saying that there's any way run right or wrong way. I'm just saying, we all have our own different weird experiences, and we are here for those weird experiences.
Wow, that's so exciting. So this experience about this day remembering, was it happening like in the same chain of events, like in the same year, like when you were 12 or something, after you had your first past life, remembering?
It was about a year later, year and a half later. So yeah, it wasn't right away. And I had those two, and then I really didn't have any more until I was more an adult, and just in the last couple of years where I've been kind of exploring those ideas. And now it's not as vivid as it once was. I think when we're younger, it's easier to connect with those other lives because we're closer to source. We're closer to the universal all, which is really a cool place. I've had a couple of clients who have gone to I like to think that it's very similar to the, in some ways, to the Egyptian Hall of Judgment,
You mentioned, yeah.
where you've got the feather of Maat, but it's a lot less judgy in the real world. It's much more just the place of absolute love from which we all come. And we don't just come from this galactic entity as humans in this meat suit, but all of the species around the world, the Arcturians, the Pleiadians, the whale people, the dolphin people, all of them.
Wow.
We are all of the galactic species. We all come from that one place. And then we go explore, and then we come back, and then we go explore, and we come back. Where we are the superconscious, and we are just part of the superconscious, and then we sever ourselves to go have an experience, and then we come back. Well, I also believe that we all experience all of our lives all in the same moment on different planes, but that's a whole other conversation.
Wow, you are like giving me clues to so many questions, and that's not a good thing. I just might blow my own mind.
I have some questions for you because, I mean,
Okay.
we all have these experiences, and we just, whether we embrace them or we run away from them is the real thing. So,
True.
when you look back at your life, do you have places or experiences that you feel really drawn to? When you, not just through this life, but were there in the past things that really just you were so engrossed with you couldn't even imagine from history?
Can you give me a little more specific cue,
Like
to pinpoint
being
experiences?
obsessed with knights in the medieval times, or really feeling like it would have been really cool to be an Egyptian, or
Ah,
a Mesopotamian, or to have to have been
got it.
around with Stonehenge.
Yeah, I guess I get your hint. Well, there has been certain, I guess, yeah. I actually can feel what you just said, that there are certain experiences which are in your life that kind of like hint you to certain directions, but you can close them off. And
Absolutely.
if you do them for a long period of time, you might even not remember like when you close them off. Maybe you just change the definition to something else, which I think I did for a long period of time. You had been a little more open to your experiences, I guess. Well, now that I had been talking with you, and a lot of things I have pondered, that now I can think some things that I can remember that might be pointing towards something probably happened in my past life. And I can't say for sure, but it felt when the memories came like that. So I guess there are few of them I can't pinpoint, but there is one image that I've always kind of like thought probably is from a past life. There's just this one thing, okay?
Okay. Spell
And
it.
always, even right now, I think like, no, it's just an image I have made up because I'm all spiritual and all this stuff. Even right now, I think that way. Okay, I'm all skeptical about
Absolutely.
that.
That is the
Yeah.
human experience. To discount this, don't discount it. I'm saying this to you and to all of our listeners and our viewers. Do not discount that feeling, because it is entirely possible that you are discounting your history, your pre-knowledge history. So don't do that. Okay, so spill the tea, dude.
Oh, you always get me to this place, right? Okay. So this image that I started getting like when I was like what, like 17 or 18, I was like going through a deep spiritual crisis sort of thing, was deep into stuff. And this suddenly, like it was during those Dark Night of the Soul episode that I was going when I was 18, transitioning from my victim to the hero thing. Still way later my hero stage would arrive, but it was really dark back then, and intense moments were happening. And this image would come in my head. I was reading a whole lot of spiritual books and a whole lot of internet and everything. This image would come, that I'm sitting with a person that I had a bald head, okay, much like those the Tibetan monks and stuff like that, except not wearing any cloth on the top. Maybe I'm in a very Indian sort of an attire, but with a bald head. But I did not, I don't know the place or anything. It seems like it's a field, and it's like just before the sunset, but it's really bright. The sun is really bright, and I'm with my master or something. I don't know, my teacher, my guru, who the person. I have not seen the guru, but the presence is there that I'm not alone. And this image that the sun is setting and it's like really yellow, and I'm like sitting there, and I'm like young, probably like what, again, like 22 or 23 or something, like this two figure, and I'm identifying with the person, the bald guy, and he's going through some realizations of, some unity or something is going on, something big explosive event is going on, and the sun is setting. Just this image. And this image, this kind of like gave me this hint, wanted to give me this kind of hint that this could be from something happened in the past life, because the feeling was so personal. That is how I can tell you that I know this feeling, and I'm chasing after this feeling again, kind of like that. I want to go back to that place where I had then, desperately seeking. And I was like the seeker kind of thing, like really seeking after the spiritual enlightenment and everything. And that is where I could feel like maybe this is something from the past. Yeah, this is the thing. Okay. What do you think about it?
I think you are dead on, that it is something from your past. It is an experience that you wanted to remember, that your soul wanted you to remember in that moment to bring you something. Usually when we have a spontaneous past life remembering, it's because our soul needs us to know something, because we are struggling with something in our current life, or we are trying to integrate something in our current life. So when we bring that through, that past life memory, it's usually for a reason. So that spontaneous past life recall just happens in order to help us in this life. It doesn't just happen just because. It happens to bring us to the next thing, or to help us understand something about ourselves, about the people around us, or something like that. The other thing of this, now, have there been any other experiences like that for you?
Any other experiences? I cannot immediately remember. No, I guess this is the one thing, I am that kind of a person who needs to be very sure before he utters something, especially in public. So yeah, I can vividly remember this one, and me getting this feeling that this is probably from past life. There's another feeling though, but this is nothing related to the past life, but this is a feeling I always had.
Spell it.
Like, this probably has nothing to do with past life, but maybe why am I in this life, kind of like that. This is so interesting. I do not know this. Does this happen with every child or not? Maybe you can relate, because we only have our own experience to relate with. I remember that this is from my early childhood memories, that till I was like 4 or 5, I was like in an unconscious state. Like, I was not consciously operating in the world. Everything was like automatic. So I do not have very vivid memories of more or less anything before 4 or 5. I remember very, very closely that when I was like 4 or 5 years of age, I was lying down, and my mother had this sewing machine, and this big gigantic sewing machines that you have, back in those days. And she was sewing something. It was like loud noise and everything. And I remember that me being like hyper conscious, like, wow, like, who am I? Oh my God, I have something called a mind. I can, I can imagine things, and people's faces would come in my mind. And I suddenly remember, okay, can I just bring the face of my father's image, like a photograph in a screen, like a computer, and his face came in? Like, what is this machine? I'm like, this is crazy. I first time observing that I can do anything in my mind and it would come, it's happened automatically. Then I realized that, oh my God, I have a hand, and everything is happening automatically, me just freaking out, like, what is going on? And why didn't I realize this? Like waking up from a slumber, something like that, that is one event that happened. And I do not know that does that happen with every child, and I do not know it has anything with past lives or not. Back after that, I become very conscious, and I started, consciously keeping memories in memory banks and stuff like that. And I have vivid, more or less, memories after that. I become a sort of like awakened person after that. This is so weird. This is so weird to say.
No. Okay. So, okay, this is a whole other interesting conversation. And the fact that you remember it is so cool. Nobody remembers this. What you just described is a walk-in. You are not the original occupant of your body.
Are you kidding with me?
Your soul merged with a second soul to create the you. That's why it was sudden. That's why it was.
It was a sudden, yeah.
That's why, because your body, your the new soul was like.
I like opened my eyes for the first time. That's how it felt like.
Yeah, you were using your eyes for the first time, and you were using your brain for the first. Yeah.
Like, what was then before that? Was it not?
It was
me. I don't have vivid memories, but I have some memories, like really young, but I cannot.
The way that this has been described to me is that it's a soul that is looking for a body that maybe didn't end up in the hall of judgment or the hall of knowledge or whatever you want to call it, that kind of got lost on its way to returning to the universal one. And so it's kind of wandering around and going, I'm feeling a little lost here, help. And then another soul can sometimes invite it in. And so what I think happened is that the two souls are probably both inside of you, which is probably
that is much more plausible. Yeah.
Which is why you also feel a little bit like a fish out of water. Usually when you have a walk-in, you feel like you don't quite fit in. The experiences that you're going through, sometimes you're like, did I really sign up for this? Really? I signed up for this? There's a lot of us that are doing that. Sometimes a walk-in is actually contracted with the family's genealogy, the history of that family, to come in and clean up whatever's going on. So you are the one who's doing the healing. You are the one who is creating different.
Totally relate with that. Totally relate.
Absolutely. You are changing the genetics of your family, because family trauma is actually carried forward. I want to say it's 20 generations.
Yeah, you mentioned.
In both directions. So your mother's family line, all of them, like grandparents and great-grandparents, you get to the point where there's like 1,000 people, right? And then the father's line as well. And all of that genetic trauma is carried forward.
Wow.
And sometimes the walk-in is the soul who's agreed to help heal all of that trauma and change the genetic material so that it doesn't contain any of that trauma anymore.
Wow, that's interesting. I was just going through this whole childhood memories, just suddenly. And I remember this one childhood picture I had in my grandfather's house. And I still remember that I have memories of that when the photo was being clicked. I was 4 or something again back then. So it seems like I have memories and I was conscious. It's like I just became like a man in like one day or something from a child. Like that is like how it felt. Like it can't be that I walked in and that other person went out. It feels like that person flowered or something, got bloomed.
When you invite a walk-in in, your original occupant doesn't disappear. Those memories don't disappear. You kind of merge the souls together, because here's the big secret about our souls. They are part of the whole, and they are not the entire whole. So you can have two souls that absolutely entwine themselves completely and totally and are content to just swim through the rest of the life as one. There's a lot of people out there right now that are all about, oh, the walk-in is evil and bad and you need to send it away and make it go away and send it to the light and, you know, whatever. I'm not of that school. I'm more of the school of both souls are entitled to exist as long as they want to be here. If one of those souls chooses to leave and the other one wants to stick around, okay, then you deal with it. Then you can do that separation ceremony and release and cut the cords and let the one soul drift away. But if you want both of them to stick around, if both sides of you, if you consider it like the yin and yang, right? Like you've got the yin and the yang. If you consider it like that, if both sides want to stick around, let them. They can beat you in some ways. So why would you ever sever them if they are both performing the actions that they are here on this earth to perform? Why would you ever separate them?
Right, makes no sense. Like, yeah,
we're kind of drifting away from our original.
That is really interesting. Yeah.
Conversation too. We probably talk about this another time. But anyways,
yeah. I guess like.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess we can ask some of our audience to share some of their own experiences related to, you know, in terms of like
either past lives or with walk-ins or any of that spiritually stuff. Definitely. One thing that I want to ask you though, have you ever felt deja vu going to someplace?
Yeah, whole lot of it. Yeah, you want to talk about deja vus today? Wow, very interesting.
Well, but deja vus can be a very strong indicator of a past life.
Wow, that is also
we'll talk about deja vus more intently in another topic, but this one is more, I just want to bring to everyone the idea that if you have a really strong deja vu and you're like, I know where things are here, I know this place at a deep soul level, it's entirely possible that either you've traveled, which we're going to talk about astral travel as well, because I think you've got some experience.
I do.
But it could also be that you lived in this space in a past life, or you experienced something in this space in a past life.
That is interesting that you mentioned this. Is because that thing that I mentioned, that, you know, me being conscious all of a sudden, like after that, I guess it's all childhood memories and I can't clearly remember everything, but I remember, like, clearly I can remember this feeling that being born in India is probably something very intentional. Like, and I know exactly why, because after 5 years of age, and I clearly, oh my God, so many memories are coming in right now. I started my spiritual quest after this whole awakening thing happened, you know? Wow, nice. You just opened up a whole lot of memories inside of me. This is crazy.
It's funny how that works, isn't it? I mean, it's all connected. All of these weird esoteric things that we're talking about, they are all connected. And it doesn't matter what your entry point is for any of this. The more you explore it, the weirder things are going to feel, and yet the more aligned. Would you agree that is absolutely the way it feels for you? Like, it's weird and yet perfectly aligned at the same time.
Weird and perfectly aligned. Yeah, that could be our tagline too, you know, for our series. Just to, you know,
Weird and yet perfectly aligned.
Right. Yeah, so that thing that I was about to tell you, that is, after that whole awakening thing, I remember feeling this feeling that an urge became very clear that I want to know about spirituality. I did not even know the term spirituality at that point. I was a kid, okay? And I wanted to know about what is death, what is light after death, and what the hell is going on? What is this going on? I became like so curious, like, this is crazy. Everything is happening. Why? How is it happening? And nobody is there to answer. And I kind of knew by hunch that my parents are not going to be able to answer this question. I can't ask them that. How was I so mature to know that? I was a 5-year-old kid. what I started doing was, back then I remember, so I gotta tell you, in India, most people are Hindus, but I was born in a weird family. My father was an atheist, my mother was mildly religious, and I am this crazy alien who just got conscious, who just is recognizing like what the hell is going on. So my father, although being an atheist, somehow brought in some books about Christianity that was going on in Bengali, translated. Bengali is my native tongue. He books and CDs and songs and stuff about Jesus and everything, all Bengali translated stuff. I felt like, yeah, this is it. I have a source of spirituality, and I knew that. I started reading those books at 5 years of age with this thick book. I was reading it. That was probably the first book I have ever read on my own, other than school books. I was finishing them, five, sevens, all of them, those CDs. There was mentions about hell and heaven and everything, and I was becoming very anxious. Like, wow, what is this? This is crazy. And I started my search from there. And this feeling, I remember that me being born in India was felt like very intentional, because India being is like a place filled with whole lot of spiritual seekers, enlightened people, and everything. Wherever you go, like there is some guru, somebody who has done something. So everything kind of like felt connected. Like, why would I be born here? Because it feels like the right place to be born, something like that. Like if I would have been born somewhere else, I would like I still can feel that I would decide to be born here, because it's so much easier doing the whole spiritual quest and everything. So yeah,
Mm,
this is that one deja vu moment that you wanted me to, where it felt right to be here. That's what I think. That's
absolutely.
why we
Well,
talk a
and
whole lot of things.
as a walk-in, maybe you did even come back into, a
Mhm.
specific body at a specific time, and you agreed to kind of share, that they would do the first couple years and then you would both do the rest. Who knows, right? Who knows the
Could
soul
be.
contracts that we make? We make weird
Oh,
ass soul contracts with each other and with our
serious.
souls. And it's bizarre. Sometimes
Wow.
it makes you wonder.
So I'll just have to say this to our audience. If you are with us right now till this point, leave a comment, share your experiences. If you have any of your experiences that matches with us, our crazy experience, leave a comments. Let us know,
Love to know we're not
that,
alone.
that we are not
We're not
alone,
alone, but we like to feel like, that we're not alone.
Right.
Because
Now I
it's
have some questions for you too.
okay. Go ahead.
Really excited, really excited. Now, I guess a lot of our audience also have this question in their mind. The first time you had this pirate experience, I'll also go into your past life regression experience with your clients. I think that's the most exciting part. But before that, just a little bit, that pirate experience started the whole past life, brought you into that your own, track, the life path. As you mentioned, things happen to you to show you where you need to go, kind of, I guess. So that experience happened, and you mentioned that it felt like a past life and not just a dream, because you remembered things that were very specific that you did not know. People might have questions like, probably at that age you were 12, you might have read a book where you got to know about pirate stuff, vocabulary and stuff. But was it something like that? Were you reading some book where you got the knowledge from? Was it the first time you got the knowledge from the dream only? Can you
From
remember?
the dream. From the dream.
Mhm.
Um, I am, I've never been interested in ships. It was not something I was
Oh,
interested in. I am, like I said, I'm a landlubber. We are not around shippers. We don't know anything about ships. I live miles and miles and miles away from the nearest big body of water. I live, there's little tiny tiny lakes. They barely are lakes. They're more sloughs than lakes. They're and so you wouldn't go in them because you'd get a disease. Kind of places. Like seriously, I do not
right.
come from water people in any way, shape, or form. So I knew nothing. Nothing. I
Ah,
had not read any books. I read some books afterwards that really cemented the idea for me because then I got into some, when you're a teenager, you do the whole historical romance period in your life for like 18 months, usually 2 years. And I did. And I read a couple of historical swashbucklers and I thought, oh, and I could tell because I could tell the people who'd actually done research
mhm.
and the people who hadn't.
Hmm.
I could tell the people who knew what they were talking about
Mm-hmm.
and the people who didn't know what they were talking about, because I just instinctively, because of this memory, I was like, they're full of shit. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. And it kind of ruined it for me, because there's a lot of really badly researched books out there. There are a lot of really badly researched books out there. They know just enough to be dangerous and not enough to actually like really give you a good feel. So, you know, I would read books afterwards and be like, could you go look at a boat? Could you go talk to somebody about these ancient boats? Like, seriously, this is not how any of this is supposed to work. And so it was really frustrating for me to have this knowledge and to not be able to explain to anybody how I have this knowledge, and to, you know, feel like the smartest person in the room when it came to this stuff and not know why you're the smartest person in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't really explain how you've lived this experience.
Yes.
And yet you really have. It was surreal.
I totally get you, I guess. I remember that you said something about an accent, about the pirates that you had no clue about, and certain word like nautical minds, right?
Not so much
Very
the
technical
accent, but
stuff.
the words, like the nautical words, which is again, the understanding of what all the pieces of an ancient boat are. Now, at this point, that was 40 years ago. I have not been around boats since. Most of that knowledge is gone from my memory, but I do remember, you know, things like keels and all the rigging. I knew what all of the rigging was called, like all the knots.
Wow.
I knew how to do the knots. I couldn't make
My
the
God.
fingers do the knots, but I knew empirically how to make all the knots and all, you know, all the things, and to be careful for your fingers, because your fingers are really, when you're on one of those ancient boats, your fingers are actually really delicate and they can get caught in things really easily and ripped off or broken or whatever. So you're very careful for your hands because you don't want them to get wrecked, because, you know,
My God.
The history of pirates, of being a boat person, of being someone who's on the water all the time, is that they don't always come home with all 10 fingers. They don't. You know, they have accidents. They have a lot of accidents.
Yes.
That's why they lose arms and legs, and they have, you know, peg legs and pirate, you know, is because of having accidents on ships. So
I get it.
It was interesting to experience all of that and to know all of that for as long as I did. I mean, I was well into my 30s before it started to fade, and then it faded fairly quickly. And this is an experience that I hear from other people who've also experienced past lives, is that it sticks with you for a really long time. But then if you don't use it, it's
Then
like
it goes
a
away.
memory, it can fade. But it does feel more like a memory and less like a, gee, that was an interesting dream that I had. Because dreams fade fast. Memories don't fade that fast.
Wow, this is super interesting. Okay, that was very, very, you know, precise the way I wanted the answers, you know. We got really detailed answer for that one. Okay, now if I ask you about the way you help your clients with, you know, healing in terms of past life regression, how did you get into that? Like, how did you learn a process of doing this, you know, in a setup and healing people?
Well, my first experience with doing past life regression was a miserable failure. I am on the autism spectrum, and we are very hard to hypnotize, notoriously hard to hypnotize. Like, basically, if you want to know who's on the autism spectrum, put them in a room with, I don't know if any of your audience is going to remember, but there was this big hypnotist back in the 70s and the 80s called Ravel. Put him in a room with Ravel and see if he can. And if he can't, they're probably freaking autismo.
Wow.
So I was really hard to hypnotize, but I went with a girlfriend to and this was back when past life hypnosis was really young, to do a past life hypnosis session with someone back in, I want to say it was 1990. Tara and I went there. And so we went, and it was, okay, little guru-y, this 30-something guy, and we were in our, like, I think we were about 19, 20, something like that. So there was this 30-something guy with two acolytes, two women with him. And so one of us would wait out in the living room talking to whoever the host was. And the other one would be in a bedroom with them with the lights off and with him trying to do the hypnosis for you. And then the other two just kind of filtering, which was interesting. And so Tara did it and she loved it. Oh my God, she had so much fun. She went back to a prehistoric place where she was in a cave, and her cousin Michelle was there and her daughter was there, and they were all in different bodies, and they were like different all kinds of things. Anyways, it was really neat. She had a blast with it. Now, this was before there was the idea that you could heal things with it. So she just went back there and she'd, like, hung out and did some fun things and whatever. I went in and they couldn't get me under. Now, I've since spent the last 30 years practicing going under and doing self-hypnosis and guided meditations, which are fantastic if you struggle with this. So now I can be hypnotized. But at the time, he couldn't get me under to save my soul or his soul, or like
anybody's soul.
Between being hypnotized or being dead, I probably would have been dead, because there just was no hope. I was not, my soul was not having it. So I missed it. I didn't get to experience it. I was so disappointed. And I still had to pay him. And this was back in like 1990, and it was $100. It was like 2 days work, for God's sake. It was a lot of money that I paid. So it was, it was an expensive lesson for me. But it fascinated me, and it really sparked an interest in both past life regression. Well, I mean, I'd already had the experiences, but it really sparked an interest in me in the idea that you could not just spontaneously achieve past lives, but that you could, and it wasn't just like the rich people, like the Shirley MacLaines of the world, that could have these experiences, but that everyone could have these experiences, that everyone could, with the right facilitator, create the environment where you could go into your past lives and look at them. Wow. And then I started thinking, if you could look at them, you could probably pinpoint what it is from a past life that's impacting your current life. And let it, and even just knowledge is power, right? Like at that point, I wasn't thinking like, let it go or cut the cords or sever it or, whatever. I was just thinking like, wouldn't it be nice to know where your neuroses are coming from, where your phobias are coming from, what's really holding you back, why you act the way you do in certain situations? Wouldn't that be amazing information to have? What a gift to know that about yourself and to be able to transform that into something different. And I kind of looked and didn't really see a lot. Dolores Cannon was obviously doing this already, but she wasn't really even mainstream enough for me to have heard about it. And I was pretty plugged into this other esoteric world for most of my life. It wasn't mainstream enough for even me to have heard about it. So I just thought it would be nice, but didn't really think any more of it. I wanted to explore it because I am terrified of needles. And it would be nice to know where that comes from so that I don't feel that way about needles. I don't like biting people. I don't like chucking them through walls. I don't like hurting people. I am not that person in the slightest. But if you put me in a room with a needle, I will hurt you. Not on purpose, but I will hurt you. I have put people in the hospital from trying to give me a needle that I want, or to take blood that I want them to take so that I can find out what's wrong with me. Like, seriously, what the hell, right? Like, I basically have to be strapped down on a gurney really hard, and then I'm fighting them the whole time, not on purpose. I'm like, how hard can you strap me down if you're going to do blood? Like, seriously, you need to, like, hold me down. Can you give me knockout gas first? Is there something you can do? Like, seriously, you're not going to get it into my arm if you're not. Like, seriously, it's just not going to happen. It would be nice, right? So that was my thing that I wanted to deal with as part of this whole idea of being able to go into past lives and see what the hell, right? And the idea that scars carry forward to current lives is interesting to me. I do actually have a mark on my neck. So at some point, I either had my throat slit or was hung in one previous life that I'm still carrying that around. So yeah, I've got a line right here, which is interesting, right?
Scary.
But birthmarks tend to be from past lives. It's something that they don't tell you about well, I mean, we tell you about it, but nobody talks about it particularly. But if you have a big birthmark or even a little birthmark, it's usually where there was a deep trauma in a previous life that you haven't emotionally healed from yet. So it's kind of like a reminder, like a brand. Like, hey, don't forget. Hey, don't forget. Hey, don't forget.
That is interesting. Seriously. So how did you learn the process of the past life regression?
I had kind of put it to the side for most of my 20s and 30s because I figured there just wasn't anything that, and even into my 40s, there just wasn't anything that was going to give me those results that I was looking for. And then, by the time I was in my 40s and I started back on my journey after my divorce, I wasn't really thinking about past lives at that point. I was more focused on the healing in this life, dealing with stress, dealing with anxiety, dealing with overwhelm, helping other women to get out of crappy relationships and stop being a doormat and stop doing all of the stupid things that women do to get love, to feel loved, to be accepted. And then about a year and a half ago, now, well, maybe almost 2 years ago. Man, time flies. 2 years ago, good Lord, I found a course on past life regression hypnosis therapy. And I was already a hypnotherapist. And I thought, oh, that's interesting.
That's a nice trail. Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to follow this breadcrumb trail.
Yeah, let's do that. We're on to something.
And what came of it was, because I and the people that I work with are so far along the journey that we don't even just go into past lives in this realm here on Earth. We do things that are even weirder. That we go to other dimensions. We go to the place between lives, which is the oneness. We do. So I've had experiences with clients where they've been lizard people, where they have been light people, where they have been Atlanteans, where they have been prehistoric, not even people yet, like Australopithecus. I had one woman who, now she was fairly far along on her journey, but one of their cats had escaped and gotten run over. and they found it later in a ditch, and they were horrified, and she felt so guilty for so long. And her second session with me, the first thing that she did was go into join the soul of that cat after it had been hit by the car and be with that cat as it passed. She didn't realize what it was at the time. She was just like, I'm in a ditch and I feel funny and I don't know why. I don't feel like I'm human. What the heck?
Wow.
What the heck? And so she experienced that, and her cat had a nice little moment where she realized who she was with, and she released her guilt because the cat wasn't upset about it. The cat was like, that was my choice. I made that choice to go do that. So it was really cool for her. She also had, she was trying to be a healer and she was really struggling with it. And so her last session with me, she experienced, because we're all parallel lines and parallel lives, and we all are running all of our lives all at the exact same time. So she had a parallel life as a healer that they merged briefly during the hypnosis session. And in that other life, she was a male. That man that she was shared all of his gifts with her so that she could do healing, so that she wouldn't be afraid of it anymore, so that she could own her gifts truly, because she knew she had that in her. She just was terrified of it. So once she had that session, then she's kind of taken off since. She's a really phenomenal healer now. So, which reminds me, I pester her and see how she's doing lately. I haven't talked to her in a while. Yeah.
So you learning past life regression not only opened lives like before in this realm, but in other dimension as well as parallel lives. Like you opened up a whole lot of things on your own.
Absolutely.
Crazy. Wow.
Well, it's funny because you wouldn't expect that just because you're on a certain path and you're at a certain level, that your clients would kind of get dragged there as well and have these weird experiences. And the first couple times that it happened, I didn't really say anything because I was like, okay, this is weird. Why am I having this? But then after like the third, I was like, okay, so maybe that's part of my gift, is not just allowing people to go into their past lives in this dimension to heal things, but also to go back into past lives as other beings and heal those experiences as well. Because not all of our trauma is from this 3D realm. Some of it is from the galactic realm. And so, the Akashics are our records for this realm here on Earth. But then above that, there are the galactic records. And then above that, there are the telluric records. So there's 3 levels of records. And so I'm into the galactic records at this point. I'm not into the telluric records, but I can get into the galactic records with people quite easily, just depending on what it is that they actually, because it's funny, we always set an intention at the beginning, like what they think they want to work on. They're like, oh, I want to work on my trauma, or I want to work on my control issues. I want to work on my fear. I want to work on my, why does my dad not love me? Whatever it is. And rarely do we actually have a life experience that ties directly into that with the person that's bothering them in this life or that bothered them in this life. It's rare. And yet, the healing work that we do is so incredibly powerful that it goes beyond that, so that they don't even care anymore. They're like, whatever. I don't care, the trauma. Like, seriously, they can just fuck right off and die. Sorry, I shouldn't say that on YouTube. But
it's okay.
Off. Like, I don't need that anymore. That is such a tiny little piece of the puzzle of, my soul that it doesn't
Mm.
matter. And that healing release is the biggest gift that any one person can give another person. That the relief of not needing answers for that specific thing, because you have answers for the everything.
Wow, that's humongous. I mean, like, I can understand the profoundness of it.
It is. It's absolutely profoundly interesting. I love it. I love it. It's
Can
my
you share one of these
it's one of-
experiences?
well,
Yeah, you wanted to say something. Yeah.
I shared a couple of them. I feel so profoundly blessed to have found this work and to be able to experience it with the people that I experience it with.
Wow.
Because
I guess, yeah.
it's
But
just
this is so interesting. I am so blessed that I met you, you know. I mean, like, this is so crazy. So many things now I can connect with. I guess a whole lot of audience can connect with a lot of things that's being revealed in our session. I have some few more questions before I guess we wrap it off, because I guess we have an incredible discussion, but I still have a few more questions.
Okay.
I guess right now, our audience probably is thinking like how the experience, like the first person experience feels like if they get to have a past life regression session with you. Can you just give us a hint how it feels like?
I can, yeah. Okay. So with hypnosis, there are a couple of different ways that you can experience this journey. You can experience just seeing things. You can experience just hearing things. Sometimes you just feel physical sensations. Sometimes you just have emotional feelings and knowings about things. There is no right or wrong way to experience the hypnosis into a past life, because everyone is different. Now, some people, you expect it to be like a movie where you're seeing it, you're hearing it, maybe you're sensing it a little bit, but it's not always that full of an experience. Sometimes it is, absolutely, but sometimes it isn't. And you're not wrong if you're doing it in one way and you think it should be in another way. You're not. There is no right or wrong. It just is. Similar to everything else that we both teach all the time. There is no right or wrong. There just is. We just are the one. And we just are part of the experience.
That's so interesting. Wow. Okay. So people can have any amount of experience. Like, it could be like a bodily sensation. They could see stuff. They can hear stuff. I mean, like, it's like an entire reality experience, like a dream that can just come back to you, right?
Yes. However, the way that therapists approach past lives is a little different for a spontaneous past life remembering, because in a spontaneous past life remembering, you're going to feel all the emotions of that person, that being. And so you're going to integrate those emotions into you, which isn't always the most healthy, because then you can get stuck in what their emotions are. So if they're angry or frustrated or upset, or they're deeply in love with, like, all of those emotions, you kind of channel them, and that can be really unhealthy. So the way that in the therapy, the way that we approach it is, you may feel the emotions, but they're going to feel like they're a third party's emotions. You're going to feel them as an observer, not as the person who's actually going through the experience.
Wow. That's so interesting.
Yeah. So what happens in a lot of cases is, because they're not identifying with that person so strongly, because we've made that space for them. It's funny, because a lot of my clients will flip back and forth between he or she as they're talking about the person, and then I. Sometimes it will be I, and sometimes it will be they. He, she,
Okay.
whoever. And sometimes they know names, sometimes they don't, but it doesn't seem to matter particularly because sometimes they identify with the person and sometimes they are just the casual observer. And it's not always when you would think. So sometimes you would expect them to be the casual observer in a really deeply disturbing moment,
Yeah.
and they are I. And yet they're not identifying with those emotions. They're not internalizing those emotions. They're just letting them be, but it's I. And sometimes when they're saying I, it's for this random thing that you're like, okay, whatever. And yet, you would expect them to be there walking and they're like, I'm walking in this body.
Ah,
How
got
cool is
it.
this? How cool is this?
This is so exciting. Wow.
It's funny. And, there's another layer to this because I had a client recently who she's quite intuitive as well. And in two of her experiences, the other her knew that she was there watching.
Are you kidding with me? That's
And was like,
possible?
yes, because you're not even just remembering, you're also experiencing because all time is happening at the same time.
Yeah, that is also true.
So all the parts of your soul that were experiencing those past lives are also experiencing those past lives right now. And you
True.
are experiencing all the moments of your entire life in this lifetime
Yeah.
right now as well, right?
Yeah.
Time is not linear. I love, love, love that Einstein did this research and found that time wasn't linear like we thought. It's kind of like all mushy together like a big ball of yarn. And so, yeah, in both of those cases, they were kind of excited to have her back. And the one, they had something important to tell, and both times, they had something important to tell her about that past life. So the number one was, look at us, look at how amazing we are. Look at this. Look at the things that we've accomplished in this life. And then in the other one, which was her most recent life, she was kind of a little obsessed with solving puzzles in that life and with injustice and fixing injustices. And there was a mystery that she was a gentleman in the previous life. There was a mystery that gentleman hadn't solved yet with regard to some Black man in Georgia who was arrested for a crime he didn't commit in the 60s. Well, that narrows it down, doesn't it? But he was obsessed with it. Like he kept telling her, like, put on your glasses and see it. Put on your glasses and see it. You have to come back and you have to pay attention to this. This is important. And she couldn't see names or anything. But she's like, seriously, dude, I need more information. You'll have to give it to me in a dream or something because Black man in Georgia arrested for a crime he didn't commit in the 60s. Wow. Throw a rock at a jail and you probably come up with 20 people, right? Like seriously.
True.
So,
wow. So that's specific. You can get.
Yeah, absolutely. You can get really specific. You can get really granular, or you can be really loosey-goosey with it too. It just totally.
Okay, that's super exciting. You answered a whole lot of questions that I was about to ask, I guess. Okay, that leaves me with one last question, I guess.
Okay.
That is, I guess we have got at least some of our audience so excited they might be willing to, contact you and have a session with you. Now, I guess the one question they might be interested that I ask you is like healing, if they want some healing to happen from this. Can you give us one of those experiences where profound healing experience happened with your client? I remember one, of course, but I want to.
It's all of them, right? Like they all experience the healing, But the funny thing is they experience the healing, but they don't actually go to the source of what they think their trauma is. Because in 9 times out of 10, the trauma that we're experiencing in this life is specific to this life. It isn't always from past life. So we think it might be, but it's not. The things that are from past lives tend not to be the things that we need to remember from our past lives tend not to be the traumas. I mean, sometimes they are the traumas because we need to experience that in order to remember how badass we are and that we were able to, either that we were able to survive it or that that death was meaningful still. And so we need to go through the death because we do go through the death experience with every life, or we try to. But a lot of times it's more about just that the knowing of there being more than just this world.
Wow. Yes.
And that is the most healing thing. Every single person that comes to me, they think they want healed from certain, whatever.
Yes.
And the healing that they end up getting is much more of a soul healing. It's much, and I mean, not that there's anything broken with your soul, but sometimes it's the connection with your soul. So it's that healing of that soul connection and that ability for you to really know your soul deep down and to really love it and feel connected to it and feel one with it. And when they feel more connected to their souls, everything changes.
That is so good. That is like seriously good.
I mean, there's no other way to say it. That's just the way it is.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. So if anyone wants to have a session with you, it's like, is it entirely possible digitally? Because you mentioned, because we are about to do this.
Sessions remotely, so over Zoom. Or most of them anyways. I can do in-person sessions, but I like doing them over Zoom because it gives the other person that little bit of space where they're not feeling quite so vulnerable in that moment. So they tend to go, I think that's part of why we do this as deep as we do, is because the sessions are not quite so personal. It doesn't feel quite so scary to open up to a computer screen as it does to open up to the human beside you.
Wow. That's so exciting. You also mentioned that these sessions usually happen over a period of weeks, like one session might take 2 hours.
Each session is about 2 hours. There's a pre-talk, there's a post, get you out of the hypnotic state period where we kind of debrief everything. And then the session itself is usually an hour to an hour and a half. And then it is a 4 to 6 session program. If you stop partway through, you can end up doing more damage than not having started at all. So you really need to commit to it, to seeing through. It can bring interesting things up. When I first started doing this, the first teacher that I had, he taught to just go through, do all the sessions, and then do all the healing at the end. Do all the cord cutting, all the stuff at the end. And I found that people couldn't get to the end because in the middle, the things that they were experiencing needed to be healed in that moment so that they could move to the next step, so with comfort and ease. So I've adapted to create my own method, which does involve more of an intermittent or an intermediate healings with each life. Each life gets its own, minor healing. And then at the end, we do a great big one, which reprograms everything and feels really amazing. So.
Wow. Wow. So they get healed almost every session, and then a big healing happens at the end session, right?
Absolutely.
Wow, that's That's exciting. That takes out a whole lot of anxiety out of this whole thing, you know? It's really
Absolutely.
scary sometimes thinking like if you experience something and you don't have a way to integrate it at that time, what happens throughout the week before the next session, you know?
Absolutely.
That's
Yes.
something,
Yeah.
one less thing to worry about.
Absolutely.
Okay. So if somebody wants to work with you, how do they connect with you? How can they reach out to you?
Well, I will drop the link down below so they can go read more about past life regression therapy. And yeah, it'll be, I would love to work with all of you. If you are watching this to this point, there's obviously you're really interested in this topic, and it might, if it's not me, go find someone that you do resonate with and do this work, because it is fascinating what comes up. Very rarely are you going to be anyone who's famous. That's just not how this generally works. If you do find that you're someone famous in every lifetime, then maybe you've got something bigger going on than just. For the most part, you're just going to be the average workaday person. Maybe you were a priestess, maybe you were a leader in your community, but you're not going to be some big Genghis Khan, Cleopatra person. But you are going to experience true healing if you do this work. You're going to experience connection with your soul in a way that you did not expect. You're going to find that your life feels so incredibly different than you ever thought it possibly could. And you're going to love it. You're going to love every part of your life from the moment of your first session through to the end of it. It is that good. You should do this work.
I'm so excited. Like,
Yeah.
seriously, because let me reveal to our audience, because I'm probably going to be trying out my first past life session, regression session with Sherisses this week. I'm excited and kind of scared. So yeah, this entire session has been.
It took me a while to talk him into it, ladies and gentlemen.
I know. I'm still scared. And
And if you're scared, you know what? If our audience is scared too, we get it. I mean, this is not for everyone. It's not. It does bring things up. You have to be aware of that, but it can be very, very cool. So I highly recommend it.
Yeah. I'm excited. At least I'm scared, but I'm excited for sure. Like,
just be excited. Don't be scared.
Absolutely.
I'm not scared in the slightest.
Okay, so we had an incredible in-depth discussion, just the way I wanted, because every time we could not have such an elaborate discussion where I could get answer for all my questions to my heart's content. I got all my answers this time. Excellent. I can tell.
Excellent.
Okay, so anything you want to let our audience know before we wrap up?
I think that's about it. I will say one of these times we're going to put Debjit in the hot seat, and he's going to be the one telling us all about all the amazing things that he does. So.
I'll try to. I guess I have a lot less, interesting stuff to talk about. I mean, than you
say that, but then I hear your stories, and I'm like, I want to know more. You were a monk? You were a monk?
That is true.
You do astral projection stuff, and let's do this. Let's have some fun with you too.
Okay.
I think if you guys want him to be on the hot seat, drop us a comment down below.
Okay. I'll try my best to. Okay, you wrap it up, Sherisses, for us.
Okay, thank you guys very much for coming. We hope you've enjoyed today's session. As always, if you do want to work with Debjit, he does have an amazing program for really diving into figuring out what your life purpose is, connecting in with yourself, and creating true abundance in your life. He doesn't call himself a law of attraction coach, but let me tell you, he's kind of a law of attraction coach by accident. So there you go. If you want to work with me, I do past life regression therapy. I do coaching, and I do, we should bring her on one of these days. I have a business partner for one of my businesses who is a medium. Her name is Vicky, and her spirit is Ephraim. And
Talk about her someday.
he does heal your soul-y kind of stuff too, integration of your soul with yourself. It seems to be the thing that I am really, really drawn to, and I love working with. And Ephraim really loves working with me because I kind of do I hold space for him really well. And we work well together to make sure that he does his talky thing and that I interpret it so that they can actually understand it. So it's kind of neat.
That's interesting.
So yeah.
Wow.
But definitely we're going to drop all the links down below. So come hang out with us in our world. And Debjit has a Facebook group that is free that you guys can all come hang out with us in. We're in there pretty regularly. So come spend some time with us.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, so we have been uploading our series in both of our channels. So if you're watching in Sherisses channel or mine, do press the subscribe button. If you want to watch more of our session, also click the bell notification button.
Absolutely.
Because at this point of time, we'll be releasing at least one of these interesting conversations a month.
Absolutely.
So that is. So have fun. And we are going to be meeting you soon for our next conversation.
Oh, yeah. We'll talk soon. Bye.